Good morning, everyone. The MPO Organization Board meeting of February 8th, 2024 is called to order. I remind everyone to please silence all electronic devices. At this time, I ask you all to please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
O merciful Creator, your hand is open wide to satisfy the needs of every living creature. Make us thankful for your loving providence and grant that we, remembering the account that we must one day give, may be faithful stewards of your good gifts. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can you have the call the roll, please?
City Commissioner Scott Black,
Here.
Councilman Lance Smith,
Here.
Mayor John Garrett Hoover,
Here.
Commissioner Ron Oakley, Commissioner Seth Waitman, Commissioner Catherine Starkey, Commissioner Gary Bradford,
Here.
Commissioner Jack Mariano,
Here.
Chairman Matt Murphy.
Here. Thank you. Okay, we're call for public comment. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Anybody would wish to speak? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on. Need to get the approval of the minutes. We are seeking board review and approval of the revised meeting minutes from October 12th MPO board meeting and the minutes from November 9th, 2023 MPO board meeting.
Mr. Chair, move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have our MPO Advisory Committee reports. We have our Citizens Advisory Committee. Is Mr. Mallow here, or
I don't see Mr. Miller. I saw that.
so Mr. Coors?
Good morning. We had a lot of good discussion at our January 31st CAC meeting. I'm just going to focus on two of the items that generated the most discussion. The first was the Innovate Pasco 2050 LRTP Socioeconomic Data Forecast presentation. We got a lot of good discussion. I appreciate the CAC members' engagement on that. Most of the discussion revolved around how the data is created and who participated in that data creation process. And you're going to hear a good deal about that today also. The other item that generated a lot of discussion, of course, was the 2024 performance measure safety targets, and you guys are also going to see that today. A lot of good general safety discussion and also the rationale for the targets and what we're doing to meet the targets, because without the rationale and what we're doing, the targets are meaningless. So there was good discussion. I appreciate the CAC members for that. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Thank you. Next up, we have Technical Advisory Committee, Mr. Clay Watkins.
Good morning, Clay Watkins, Pasco County Transportation Engineering Department and TAC Committee Chairman. Our meeting probably wasn't as talkative, it sounds like, as the morning. Most of our conversation was based off of the performance target reports. Some of our conversations were more like how the implementation would go as we further go along, and then there was some other additional conversation on how e-bikes would be figured into that equation, and it sounds like that still stays in the PEDS. Then we had a lot more conversation sort of after our meeting, because there was a citizen's email read in regarding school queues and how it affects roads and sometimes dangerous situations. So we got into a lot of conversation on the pickup lines and queuing inside of the right-of-way. So that's mostly our conversations. Any question?
Any questions? Anyone? All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, Mr. Brian Michaels.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name's Brian Michaels. I'm the chair of BPAC. So we had an 11-item agenda. A couple of the highlights were they had a safety event at Hudson Academy where they gave away 180 bike helmets and gave a safety pedestrian presentations on safety. The other item that's was a big improvement was FDOT is doing 2 US 19 mid-block crossings up near State Road 52 that are scheduled for design. That'll include mid-block pedestrian signals. These are going to be push-button activated signals that will only work with pedestrian pushing the button, but they'll be full signals. Pasco is also hosting the Tri-County meeting February 15th at Starkey Ranch. And
Starkey Ranch TLC.
yes. And I would just like to add the safety message from BPAC this meeting is think once, think twice, and walk at the cross. Please use the crosswalks. Thank you. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Commissioner Starkey?
So where are these mid-blocks coming on 52 and where are we with the one on Starkey Boulevard that's supposed to move over?
I can't answer the Starkey one, but it's between Jasmine Boulevard and Plantain Drive. It's a 5.28 mile stretch of roadway. Includes resurfacing sidewalk, traffic signals, signing, pavement markings, lighting, and associated draining safety improvements. But maybe FDOT is here, maybe they can answer.
Yeah, because you said mid-block crossing, right?
Yes,
Is this like for a sidewalk or there's not a,
there'll be a push, it's.
what's going on
I'll
with
let
our
them-
screens
they're
here?
All right.
Confirming. Good morning. FDOT is putting in the mid-block. That's just, what is it, west of the overpass that's supposed to go in. They said they're going to give you an update on it at community.
Okay, well, I'd like to know where we are with the Starkey, with the coast-to-coast mid-block crossing on 54.
Right, that's going in at community on 54. They're going to provide an update for you.
No, the one, not that one. That is way to the west of the coast to coast. That one would be for the Orange Belt Trail. I'm asking for the coast to coast mid-block crossing. That would be, right now it crosses at Starkey Boulevard in 54.
Okay.
It was supposed to be kind of over by where the power corridor is.
Yeah, they're going to provide an update for you because they don't have an
Okay.
update at this time.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anyone?
We're good?
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, that should be all of our committee reports. We're gonna move on to action items. Number one is Tampa Bay MPO merger presentations. Ms. Tania Gorman.
It's me. Good morning. Here we go. So this morning, I'm going to come to you about the Tampa Bay merger. We've been talking about this over the last year, so I'm sure everyone's pretty comfortable is going to be pretty comfortable about this discussion. All right, so the purpose of this discussion is to review today's information and bring it back to the TMA on the 16th so we could have a more robust discussion going into the next round, the next year with the stakeholders and citizens. And also this was requested at the previous TMA. So again, as we go into this discussion, remember, this is not exhaustive. This will not be solved in one day. These are just some of the things that the MPOs, the three of us came together and said, let's at least start the discussion with these basic principles so that way we can have a better discussion moving further down the line. It also will help us clarify what apportionment we're thinking about, who's sitting on the board, and so forth. So as we said previously, the last time we met, the board, the MPO board requirements is 5 to 25 voting members. The exact number is left up again to the apportionment and the committee, but it's a max of 25 and a minimum of 5. The members shall include elected officials of general purpose and may also include members of a statutory authorized planning board. And FDOT must be a non-voting advisor.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Commissioner?
on that slide there,
Yeah, can you go back one?
when it
Thanks.
says equitable geographic population ratio basis, what exactly does that mean?
Meaning it goes by the apportionment plan and how, when we do the decennial census, what does that look like based on population? So I came to you about 2 or 3 months ago, and I said, okay, here's our apportionment after the decennial census. That's what that means. After the decennial census, we do an apportionment plan.
So it's straight population, it doesn't matter about land mass.
Right, it's population. But again, remember that you can have max of 25 and minimum of 5. You could say, okay, per the population, it's 17, but we can go higher. We have that option. So just so you guys know, you're not locked into, okay, yes, if we did the apportionment, this is what it would be. You have max and minimums. Okay, topic number 1, board size. We're going to do this in ranking preference, so that way we just have an idea. You're voting on the ranking preference, not necessarily the actual board size. So that way, when we go to the TMA representatives knows that this Pasco MPO, this is how they are going to discuss, and this is what we are for with board size. So option 1, small board, 5 to 7 voting members. This one is some of the highlights: easy to manage, simple allocation of seats, opportunity for more committees. Challenges: how do you have the board size is subject to change because it's really small? A small board may not adequately represent the county, and also trying to meet quorum, that wouldn't exactly be representative, would it? Option 2, medium board, 9 to 15 members. That's kind of where we are now. So we have that feeling right now. It's just consistent with all 3 board sizes with the TMA groups. Population ratio based on seats could result in a cleaner distribution. It more thoroughly represents the counties and the cities, and opportunities for robust advisory committee participation. Again, challenges, it may not be as big to cover the 3 vast MPOs that we have, and it would require more coordination. Lastly, a large board, 17 to 25. And right now, just to let you know, Fort Pinellas has 13 board members. They have redid their apportionment plan, which is currently waiting to be approved by the governor, to go up to 19. They wanted to include more of their cities in their MPO board. And then Hillsborough TPO sits at 16 board members, just so you have an idea of the current board sizes.
And how many do we have?
We have 9.
Well, we could have 9
You could, yeah.
people.
So that is the large, and again, the highlights there, you know, it does have a really equal distribution. And you could increase if we had the legislature. So let's say we did want to go higher, we would have to have the legislature update that. But again, challenges, it's a challenge to manage logistically large boards. As you all know, sometimes there's various different discussions, and so it might be harder to manage, but it is representative of all the counties. All right, so I will leave it to the discussion right now of rank your preference, and then we'll take action.
Question.
Commissioner?
Yes,
So right now, if I wrote the numbers down right, it's 32% Pinellas, 19 Pasco, and 51 Hillsborough. Is that right? 49 Hillsborough, 49 Hillsborough.
the percentage, the census population,
Yeah.
it's 32-49, 32 for Pinellas, 49 for Hillsborough, and 19 for Pasco County.
So how often do we look at the population number?
Every 10 years after the decennial census, by the time we come around for the potential merger, we'll be close to another another census coming on board.
Okay, so it's every 10 years it would be readjusted. Is that in requirement? Can it be readjusted every 5 years? Just curious.
I believe per legislation, it's every 10 years for the MPO, and that is when we do our apportionment plan. Now, if this happens prior to the decennial census, I don't know if we'd have to wait until we got to a decennial census or do it as we were doing the actual merger. I'm pretty sure we'd have to do the apportionment as we were doing the merger because we have to do the board composition by population size.
And what was the number that they used that we're using for the 2020 for our population? Do you know?
564,000.
Because we're way past that.
Right, we're way past that. We all know that. We know, we're at the 600,000 mark and beyond at this point. And also, with COVID and getting those numbers, we know that there was some information maybe could have been elevated through that because of the way COVID hit. And, some people may not want to answer their door and be counted in the census. So we know there was some issues with some of those numbers, but we're way above 564,000. Do you want to go back to the actual, I'm sorry. There you go.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm comfortable, I think, with the mid-sized board.
Mid?
I don't know how that would play out, but whatever the percentages work out best is fine. I think with Hillsborough getting 49%, they can figure out whatever they want. That gives them a little more flexibility. I think if you go too large, it's hard to get anything.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
and the mid-size was 9 to 15 members?
Yes,
Is that right?
mid-size was not.
So would we want the higher amount of that? I mean, like on the 15 side of that, is that what we're thinking, or?
Are we just recommending medium size and then?
Right, we're
figure out
recommending the size, right,
Because-
preference of size.
Because I'm just did 15, and basically that'd get Pasco 3. You know,
Right.
Yeah,
Probably
if it
9
was-
would be 2. I mean,
753, something, maybe
Yeah.
it's going to be something like that.
Yeah.
Pasco and Pinellas are working very well together.
We are.
And it seems that for some of our comfort, when you add Pasco and Pinellas together, it's a majority number. I'm comfortable with that. I do think things are changing in Hillsborough, and they're realizing the value of this regional MPO now. So more than what we had in the past, there's been some, new folks coming in. So I'm feeling much more positive, but I still like this assurance that so we would want whatever Pasco and Pinellas add up to be able to equal a majority.
I see. Just to inform you.
Don't put that in the paper.
No, no, absolutely not. To inform you, I did.
Our little secret.
Gotcha. I've duly noted. I did have an opportunity to attend the special TPO board meeting that Hillsborough had for the Tampa Bay TPO merger discussion. It was a good meeting. They had lots of good discussion. It looks like they're still on board to, coming together and trying to do a regional MPO. And as you know, the city of Tampa would always love more representation. That was kind of their main discussion, but they had a very good discussion. And so I think we're able, for this next year at the very least, to keep the discussion going. And then hopefully we can move into more actionable plans.
Can I ask another question?
Yes, go ahead.
What might a timeline be like if, since we're moving on this path, what would be our optimum timeline for implementation? I'm just wondering if we have this pipeline already that has to be addressed. So when do you think we'd be coming together?
What we sent to the legislature was by 2027 is when we would want to be assembled to actually have the merger occurring. So, we're already in 24, so we're only a couple years away. That's what we sent in the package.
Sure.
Just to make a comment about as far as Hillsborough goes, I think the three counties are working better together than ever.
Yeah.
Agreed.
We just did a Pasco, we did a Tampa Bay days at the legislature, and it was well received. I think there's a lot of good bonding coming on, so I'm very optimistic that no matter what, we're all going to work together. Especially, I think, the way legislature was talking, they are going to try to allocate all that Hillsborough sales tax money collected. They're going to try to make sure they make a motion through the legislature to direct that money to go into Hillsborough, which is going to be a huge game changer for
For
that.
transportation?
For transportation.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, the referendum?
Not refunded or.
Not refunded, just
Yeah.
put it into transportation as designed.
And we support that 100%.
So from what I'm sorry, is there another comment?
Oh, I was gonna say, so is that acceptable to everybody to go with the option 2 medium board, 9 to 15? Everybody agreeable with that?
One thing I wanted to mention on that, Metro Plan in Orlando has 9 members.
Right, and they have three, I believe Seminole, Osceola, and Orange, if my memory serves me correct.
Let's see, I had, 6 for Orange, 1 for Osceola, 2 for Seminoles, what I counted, but, how much do you think they'll be using that as a model in terms of if we say 9 to 15 and they're using 9 with Metro Plan Orlando, would they think we ought to be 9 too, or would
Well-
we have that?
When I do the math at 9, we don't have a majority.
Right.
So I wouldn't say.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, we might want to say, if we want to go medium board, we may want to specify, we want to see 15.
Yeah,
Yeah, we want to push the medium as far as you can.
Right.
Okay,
If they're using, we tend to talk about what Metro Plan Orlando's done a lot through the years and how coming together regionally, they've been able to accomplish this, that, or the other, but they're doing it with 9. And so if we want to push that model, we do want to specify, but we want 15.
gotcha. And I'm going to presume that we took small off the top, we took that off the list.
Yeah.
That's what Hillsborough did as well. They took it off, they said we're only really discussing option 2 and option 3, large. So we'll say the first option, option 2 is your most preferred, option 3 is second in running.
But I would like to see that stated, that medium is preferred, but we'd like to see the maximum of 15.
it could also be 13, 643, if it went there, 643,
But not
753.
but not to minimize it is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right, don't take it down to the lowest
Right.
median.
And 9 would
Right.
not be good.
Yeah, I think it would be to our advantage to ask for more than, the higher number,
Absolutely.
or as close to the highest.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
would it be better to go the large? That way you don't have to worry about making sure you get the maximum medium. You can get the small into the large, and then that also gives you some room to, just because say large doesn't mean it'll be 25.
Now, large is max of 25. You could have.
Right. That would solve the problem of not having enough of the medium.
So, thought on that. Perhaps it's 15 medium to start, and at the 2030 census, we relook at everything. And keep it open that we start with the medium, with the option to go to large at the census. Does that make sense?
Well, everyone else would have to agree with that too, right? The other-
Yeah.
Yeah,
they would have
we're
to
throwing
be
out
correct.
ideas here.
This discussion's going to carry on further. We're just giving them a range so we can
Yes.
take the next step. So just kind of like,
Yes.
let's cut out what we don't want to see and get closer, because these discussions are going to keep on going, so.
Right. We have a
I'll be
whole
looking for
year.
Firm number.
So can we just take the action on the prioritization? Would that be possible for recommended action for preference 2 and then subsequent preference 3?
Everyone good with that?
Can I ask another question? Because just thinking about quorums and if there's a member and they can't go, will there be alternates, and can they be voting alternates?
That is something we can write
That's
into.
important.
It is important.
Right. That's something we definitely can discuss when we're writing into our
I think we
merger
need to have
documents.
that.
Also, Hillsborough TPO brought up, what if, I think, or Pinellas brought up, what if we can do online in case of emergency, or have that option given to us since we're spanned across 3 counties. So there are things to look at as we go along.
Okay. But I just think having that insurance of having an alternate be allowed to vote would be important for
Well, I think
us
that'd
as
be
the
a good idea.
minority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I move approval of option 2 being our top priority, option 3 the second priority, and no consideration of option 1.
Correct.
Second?
Yeah.
All right, got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Passes.
Wow, that was,
Good
I
discussion.
thought it might be a little longer.
I'm encouraged.
Yes, absolutely.
Big money coming our way.
And looking
Yes.
back, I may have been wrong on my Metro Plan numbers. I apologize. I was realizing there was a few more pages there, but I
It's
do
okay.
think, yeah.
It gets a little confusing there. Topic 2, role of transportation operators. So please consider the appropriate role for both local and regional transportation operators in the Tampa Bay TPO. Should local and regional operators be treated different or the same? Please rank your preferences. So when we go into this discussion, we want to look at a few things. Keep in mind that Hillsborough TPO and Fort Pinellas, they have actual transportation operators on their board. Currently, on Fort Pinellas, the City of St. Petersburg City Council person represents PSTA, and then also Fort Pinellas Board as the countywide planning authority and MPO board. So when we're going to this discussion currently right now in the MPO board, we don't have any transportation operators. So when we're looking at local versus regional, right now we have the Planning Commission for Pasco County. That's one of our local entities. And then we have Go Pasco as our transportation operator, which offers 5 regional connections, especially in two in Pinellas and 1 in Hillsborough, which is in the TMA. The regional operators is Thea, and I don't know if everyone knows this, but Thea in 2014 has the ability to go outside of Hillsborough County
Yeah, they came and talked
to do projects. However, currently, there is no project that is outside of the Hillsborough area. So keep that in mind. Port of Tampa Bay and then the Aviation Authority is also a regional entity.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner?
BRT, does that count for a project that they could use? Yeah,
The bus rapid transit
right.
that was going through T-BARTA,
Yes.
T-BARTA is dissolving, so we can't use T-BARTA.
No, but I'm saying the BRT was a plan that was outside the county. Is that something that is factored in here or not? As far as what they could do?
As far
Thea.
as
Thea.
Thea,
Yeah.
we would have to ask them.
good
I
question.
don't think so, because I think it was with T-BARTA, and it was gonna be with FDOT.
Don't think about T-BARTA.
Okay.
Just think about the plan.
I am not sure. I would have to ask them to see if they could actually do that, the BRT.
Yeah, we'd like.
Would you, I
That's a
could
good
definitely
question.
look into it. Because currently on US 19, we were, Pinellas and Pasco were working to actually see if we could put the regional rapid transit down 19. That was currently the discussions. The study concluded, and then now we were trying to see how we could work together to make that happen. So that's what the BRT switched from. So that's currently kind of on the table in discussions.
But we have taken that 75 route to, I mean, it's been studied and we've done, did we get up to the environmental? How far?
No,
did get?
that did not go to environmental.
We got up to the environmental,
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
I mean, it's,
And then it was voted, T-BARTA board voted against it, and then that's when we came over to have discussions with Pasco and Pinellas.
I don't think we voted against it. I think Hillsborough wouldn't let it happen on part of their property.
And that was before this past election.
Yes, it might be a different story.
It might be. So moving on to transportation operators and non-voting advisor status. So this option could allow operators, both local and regional, to have a voice on the board irrespective of board size. And so when you just kind of moved, so when you see that with aviation and the Port Authority, how would you like that to be taken out of the apportionment size? Do you want it off the top, which would mean the seats for regional operators would be filled first, with the remaining seats allocated by population among individual counties? Or would you like it taken, out of the seats that they have?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner?
At 19%, I don't think I want to give up any of my seats for an airport or a port. I do think it's important that they get represented, but I think commissioners from East, just like Harry Cohen, he represents the airport. If Hillsborough wants to go put something in for them or their cities, so be it. If Pinellas wants to put in for their cities or their smaller airports, so be it, but I don't want that to affect our apportionment or our percentage.
Yeah, and I think the city of Tampa has someone on the Tampa Port Authority, and they may have a commissioner as well.
Right, and that's another discussion. So when we're saying if we were to take it off the top and then who would sit in that seat? Would you want another commissioner, or would you want a non-elected official? Because then that commissioner would have another more representation as a commissioner representing the Port Authority or the Aviation Authority. So that's just some food for thought. I think it would be maybe a little bit fair if it was a non-elected, so that way there's equal representations of the elected and then representation of the actual entity. So just some food for thought when you're going into the seats and who sits where.
Well, looking, if we went with a 7-5-3, if one of those 7 was a non-elected Port Authority person and the airport was a non-elected, and the THEA was a non-elected, that would still give them 4 commissioners. So I think it just comes out of the Hillsborough.
Mr. Chair.
What do you guys think?
Well, I think it's up to them because it really doesn't matter to us as long as we maintain our 19%.
Right.
I mean, so it's up to them if they want to have it either have it non-voting or have a commissioner represent one or place them on there. But we're just saying we don't want to give up any of our spots in the total amount, right? I mean.
Right, that's exactly what I'm saying. Well, let them have the flexibility to do what they want.
Or add to that number, they get X amount based on population, however they allocate it. What do we care?
Yep, I agree.
So each county figures out what they want on their board, however they want to do it, as long as they have the number.
So I will pose this as, if everybody chooses the seats of who they want without us all agreeing, then could that pose an imbalance in some situations? Just food for thought, because that was something that we were discussing amongst the staff directors. If Hillsborough just chose what they wanted on there and Pasco and Pinellas, everybody'd have a different variation of what their board seats would look like. And then that may create imbalance if we don't do it now. But again,
That's why I like having each one of these regional operators have one of the 7. And then they would still have 4 commissioners or 3 county commissioners and 1 city council person, however they want to divide up the 4 remaining.
But I don't care how they divide it up.
Right.
I really don't. I mean, they can pick however they want to set it up. I have no problem
But
with
don't-
whatever they want to do. I don't see an imbalance. What I see is they're going to choose what they want, and I want them to choose who they want there. If they want to have the port, the airports, cities may step in, et cetera, so be it. Let them decide. Give them all the autonomy to make that flexibility. I'm good with that. I don't see any problem with imbalance. I see it their choice.
And that way we can control ours too, same thing.
Okay.
all right. So recommended action, we're going to take the port and aviation off of Hillsborough seats apportionment.
I think it's to our advantage to make sure we have a non-elected regional transportation person on there. I'd much rather see Joe Lapano and Mr. Anderson and 4 commissioners than 7 elected officials who have to worry about their votes and whatever. I think I saw you shaking your head. I'm thinking that you.
I mean, I always leave it to the policy direction to the board, but that's just some of that could be a possible repercussion later down the road, that you will have now more elected officials over on Hillsborough, possibly representing, if we include, because at that point, if we take it off the top, take it out of Hillsborough's apportionment, then like you said, they can choose who they want to on their side. If you take it off the top, you may have more unifying, discussion, since it's off of the top of the whole number, if that makes sense.
Because I do think the port and the airport folks think pretty regionally.
They do.
I don't know much about the Hillsborough, the THEA. I know they came and spoke to me once, a couple of years ago, when that authorization went through, but
They're definitely looking at through a bigger lens, because the port is not just for Hillsborough, it's for all the entire region. So is the airport. I mean, how many of us fly out of Tampa International when you leave? We usually don't go down to Pi, and you may go to Orlando, depending on where you're going.
Never.
So it's a huge regional entity.
Does the THEA have taxing authority? How do they, I mean, it's authority, so
I believe they have taxing and bonds, if I'm correct.
I guess they toll the roads that they
do.
build, right? It's interesting. I don't, I'm just throwing that out there. To me, I see the advantage of at least two of those seats going to one of their authorities.
And again, our percentage is small, and I think frankly, with the census done now, or you're done a few years ago, we're actually hurt by what we should get for percentages. To minimize your percentage,
I wouldn't minimize our percentage.
well, if you have a hill, if you get.
No, I take it out of their
Fair
seven.
portion.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's still out of the sum, but yeah.
Yeah.
So give them the flexibility, just keep the percentages the same. Okay, I thought you were going like.
No, I was saying out of the seven that Hillsborough has, two of them have to be from one of these, or two or three would have to be one of these regional authorities.
So you're.
What do you call them?
You're suggesting option 3, then, that they'd come out of their apportionment, right?
Our screens are out again, so.
Yeah.
Out of Hillsborough. I'm okay with the verbiage because I like the word could. We're not making them do it, but could.
Yeah.
No.
And you know, you.
Out of
Yes,
Hillsborough-
I'm for option 3.
You
Option
know,
three.
you might be
Okay.
right about that because there's some consistency in having the same, like that the transportation operator, the airport guy, their elections come and go, people change, but at least you might have some consistency as far as the direction for the airport or the port. So maybe
Yeah.
it does make sense. you
And
know.
and that person is following the direction of his airport board, not the commission board, hopefully, you know? I mean, I know there's a commissioner sitting on that board, but, and all those people are regional, typically regional thinkers thinking,
And I think Jack's right as the could, leaves in the
Yeah.
option.
Nice
It's
word.
up to
So
them.
3.
All right, thank you. All right, future apportionment topics. One of the, what we'll be talking about next is how we, well, this is what we just discussed about filling independently. Do we want to fill our seats independently or do we want to do it regionally? Do we all have that discussion? We'll talk about small cities, how we want to represent those. Keep in mind, again, this is not exhaustive. If there's more ideas that come through, it's up for discussion. There's a lot of things we can do with the cities, and then specific memberships to consider. Do we want to have weighted seats, rotating seats? So there's more conversation to come. All right, any other questions or discussions?
well, I would just say that I'm sure all the counties feel this way, that we want to be sure that all our cities are still have a voice. And I think that we're going to have certain kind of committees, right? That,
We will
right,
have
so,
subcommittees, just like Metro Plan that you brought up. They have several subcommittees.
And I was way off on my numbers. I apologize. There were several other pages there. They have 15 elected officials, and then 5 groups: Expressway Authority, Commuter Rail Aviation Authority, Orlando Municipal Advisory Committee, which is their elected officials, and then the Sanford Airport. And 3 of those 5 are elected. And then they have 5 non-voting members. They're CAC, FDOT, Kissimmee Airport, their TAC, and their Transportation System Management. So they have 20 members with 5 non-voting. And 5 of those, in addition to the 15, as I mentioned, were 3 of those were elected. So they have 20 plus 5 non-voting.
we hadn't brought up the idea of having non-voting. That's another option.
That
The
is another
port,
option.
The airport, District 7, of course, and I don't know who else, could be non-voting members. Well,
Could be.
I think DOT is one anyway,
Yeah, they are, by legislature.
but I guess we have to see how
Metro
Hillsborough
plan.
shakes out on their 7.
In the Metro Plan, they are voting members of the Expressway Authority, Commuter Rail, the Orlando Aviation Authority, the Municipal Advisory Committee, and then the Sanford Airport. Those are the added 5, and 3 of those 5 are elected.
The rotating seats could give you the option to rotate out. Again, that would be a lot of fun trying to figure out that schedule, but that is an option, so you have representation, because we'll have the smaller kind of piece of the pie as you'd think, but I think you can get representation various ways as we go along. Even though we're small but mighty. So you have the options in there to make us more robust in the conversations or the representation. So I think, don't be dismayed by us being smaller. I'll leave it at that.
That municipal advisory committee was one of those 5, as I mentioned, in addition to the 15 regular. And so that probably is a rotating person.
Probably.
Yeah, but they are voting that municipal advisory committee.
Commissioner Mariano?
Yeah, and I'm comfortable with, however, like Hillsborough would want to do it, if they want to go non-voting as well, I'm flexible with that too. I think they should be at the table and not to vote as, that's an option. If they want to keep their percentage amongst their elected, so be it. As far as like your question here about future discussions, I'm going to say as far as like who picks who sits on the board, I think kind of like what we do with TMA right now. Let's figure who wants to go, who can go, and they go. And if we have a setup where, as Commissioner Stark, I think, mentioned, if you have alternates behind it, so that if someone can't go to a particular one or you get those windows, then we can fill it in with another person. And I think the MPO board can fill that and just should get the flexibility to do that every year if they choose to.
Okay. I have that written down. And the next TMA will be February 16th at the airport.
Yep, Friday morning.
Friday morning, yep. So all this information that we've discussed here, our representatives from our Pasco board will go there and bring this information forth and have discussion at the TMA. All right, thank you.
Right.
It's important that we have representation at that meeting.
Yes.
And even if you're not on the TMA, it's fine for you to come and be a participant, because it's going to be a very important meeting.
So I will not be at that meeting.
Oh,
so,
no.
I'm telling you now.
Oh. Okay, well, it's got to be more than me.
Are you gonna be there? I mean, I'll be there
I'm the
too.
chair.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll be there.
okay, I'll go also.
Why does this keep going on and off? It's all of us. We gotta like tape that in or something.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. There's got to be a better placement for this box.
Making me dizzy. Oh, our screens are going on, off, on, off, on, off. It's a little
I keep thinking I'm kicking it or something.
disconcerting. Yeah, I was wondering that.
All right, so moving on to number 2, Innovate Pasco 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan. Mr. Scott Ferry.
Good morning, Board.
Jeez, it's still doing it. That's okay, just leave it.
I am pleased to report that work on the MPO's 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan, which is known as Innovate Pasco 2050, continues to progress well. The MPO staff and the MPO's consultant team recently completed the plan's existing conditions summary. And in the next week, the study team will begin an analysis of the county's roadway level of service data between 2020 and 2050, which will allow them to identify existing and future anticipated roadway deficiencies. The plan team will also begin developing the Transportation Improvement Project revenue forecast, which will enable us to determine how much money we anticipate will be available for transportation improvements over the life of the plan. The plan team will also begin an update of the plan's policies, goals, and objectives, and will also begin development of the needs plan for the study, which will be a very exhaustive list of all the identified transportation needs in the county from current day up to the horizon year of 2050 for the plan. This morning, Mr. William Roll, Transportation Planning Consultant with Kimley Horn and Associates, is with us to present the final transportation plan socioeconomic forecast data for population and housing up to the year 2050. And he's going to share a little bit about the methodology that went into the forecast. The socioeconomic forecast data is very important because it is incorporated into the regional travel demand model, and it is used to determine where all the growth is going to be occurring and where the future roadway and other transportation improvements are needed. So I will let Mr. Roll speak with you.
Good morning, William Roll, Kimley Horn and Associates. I'm a resident of Lakeland, Florida, and that's where my office is as well. It's a pleasure to be presenting before you today. Mr. Chair, it's your pleasure. I can give you the long version or I can give you the shorter version of this presentation. I know that many of the board members, I think, have already been had a presentation in terms of the methodology. So it's your pleasure in terms of how in depth you want me to go.
Would we like the long or the short, everyone?
Well, we don't need the methodology. But
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Very well. All right, so the thing I'd like to go and primarily focus on, and so, I've been doing this work for off and on for the Pasco MPO and for many of the other MPOs in the state of Florida for over the course of the last 30 years. This is not the first forecast that I've prepared for a long-range transportation plan. As a board, I always consider one of the most important things that you do is adopt your county population that will be used in the travel demand forecasting model. So to that end, I have the control totals that are being used. And I will say, in my 30 years of doing this work, I've never had so much discussion in terms of the population control total as I have on this particular forecast. There's been a lot of discussion back and forth between county staff, your economic development folks, and also the local jurisdictions. So where things have landed in terms of population, going from a base year population of about 562,000, growing that population all the way out to 1,018,000 in the year 2050, which represents about a 457,000 increase in population. To put that in perspective, the University of Florida, as an agent of the state, develops population forecast every year for Florida counties. They produce 3 forecasts, a low, a medium, and a high forecast. Generally speaking, in the past, the guidance has been use the medium forecast, or at a minimum, you should use the medium. I will say, if you go and you take a look at those forecasts in the past that have been produced, they're consistently low in high-growing counties, particularly a county such as Pasco that's adjacent to another larger, major county that's building out. So historically speaking, in the past, the population that's been used in Pasco has been either an average of the Beaver medium and high or the high forecast. This particular forecast is about 11,000 more than the Beaver high forecast. I feel confident in recommending to this board that that's the number that you go with. As we look at this and how this is used in terms of forecasting the transportation demand, if we're a little overly optimistic, we don't have a 2050 plan. We have a 2053 plan, and that's okay. The same improvements need to be made. The same type of development is going to take place. If we underestimate it, then now we're shooting low, and that can be a real problem. So a lot of confidence in terms of the population side of this forecast at this point in time. And again, this gets updated in another 5 years when you do your 2055 plan. In terms of employment, pretty dramatic change in terms of the employment nature. If you drove any distance through the county, you can see why this county has changed over the course of the last 10 to 15 years. So the 2019 employment came in at about 187,000. That is increasing to 424,000 roughly, which is an increase of about 237,000 over that time frame. I will highlight the fact to you that you'll see that the employment is more than doubling. Okay, whereas the population isn't. Why is that? A fundamental demographic shift in terms of your population that you have here. Old, you have a much younger population. But I have also watched over years as you've developed a threshold that you can support other employment activities, okay? So, when we were doing this 20 years ago, we didn't have a Wiregrass. We didn't have that type of economic item. We didn't have some of the facilities and resources that you now have. And now you have those things, and that growth is going to continue to happen. The employment forecast is also, yes.
Can I make a statement?
Yeah.
So have you guys factored in what might happen with this new Live Local plan that just passed the Senate yesterday?
So, well, that was actually a glitch bill in there. The Live Local was already a factor that was in place. I mean, I will say that as it relates to counties and potential impacts, I would foresee that the impact would be a little bit less to your county.
Oh, no.
As it would be to maybe some others.
Okay,
Yes,
well.
You're way off.
Way off. I'm gonna tell
Okay.
you what
All
happened
right.
yesterday. I had a national industrial developer in who does spec and light industrial buildings. And they made an offer on a property on State Road 52, near where the power line goes through. I don't remember the name of the development or the ranch. And they wanted to build tens of thousands of square feet of spec, really nice product. And they said, the real estate agent said, oh, we have a Live Local project coming here on this industrial space. And the industrial developer said, well, we can't pay the same amount as an apartment complex would. So they had to walk away from their plans there. And he told me they talked to his CEO. This is a family-held company. They're in like 10 or 12 states. He said, how are we going to compete in Florida when we have to compete for industrial land against an apartment builder?
So I'm going to say.
It's devastating.
So I'm going to say this glitch bill, which again, still doesn't address affordable housing whatsoever. It's all high income stuff. I think you need to go recalculate what you've got for numbers here to what's really going to happen, because what we may have is a much higher population coming in than what you've got even forecasted now. And you're going to probably see less jobs right here as well.
Okay.
If this plays out the way we think.
Let me clarify my comment in terms of the impact, okay? I'm developing these forecasts for 10 counties in the state of Florida currently. The mix of vacant land, the nature of the mix of vacant land in some of your other counties, like if we take Polk, for instance, or a Sarasota or a Manatee, they have very large portion of, I would say, industrial land that is underdeveloped, tends to have older uses on it. And at least short-term, the trend that I've been seeing, those have been the properties because of the proximity to the existing urban core where the land values are otherwise much higher, where you're seeing that push for redevelopment. Yes, you're going to have that happen. That being said, we're looking at numbers that are forecasting out to the year 2050. There's a lot of averages that are built into this. There's a lot of different things that are in play. In terms of industrial, the growth that was identified on that was out to about 53,500. That was just the industrial component. The more substantial component in terms, the commercial is at 50,000. The service employment is at about 134,000. In conversations with your economic development folks, they are directing us to show an increase in the employment to population ratio, which makes sense because it's happened. It's happened in the last 5 years alone in terms of that shift. It is this board's pleasure that changes. I will comment that this particular item is a time-critical item in terms of moving forward, because right now this is holding up the overall transportation planning effort in the region.
Mr. Chairman, I'm okay with continuing with this, but I sure would like for people like you to get with the relevant people in the state and take a look at what they're doing to the state. I know that someone from FACT told me that when this bill was first introduced last year, the Revenue Estimating Conference said it was going to cost the state $100 million. And they increased that to $800 million. And I am sure that's going to go up on their hit. So they have totally missed what's going on. And the economic forecasters need to take a dive into how we are wrecking our state with this one. So,
This is another example of preemption on the part of the state legislature. It certainly is. And just the comment in terms of the bill and the folks involved. One of the things I'm just rolled off as being the vice chairman of the Chamber of Commerce over Advocacy and Government Affairs down in Lakeland. We actually had the Senate. Senator who sponsored this legislation, not the current glitch bill, but the original legislation, had them come on, and basically we were kind of holding them the task, because one of the major issues that many of the local governments are facing, not necessarily the conversion of land being an issue, but then just the need to provide the level of infrastructure, particularly in the way of utilities that are associated. Because what you have to provide for a warehouse is order of magnitude different than what you'd have to apply, if it was 500, apartment dwelling units. And that's been one of the areas that many of the local governments, have expressed concern.
yeah, and how's the school district going to plan now? And this puts housing where they weren't planning on it, and it also cuts their ad valorem. So, and the water management district. So where's our cooperative funding money? It's going to get whacked. So it's misguided. I mean, good intentions, bad rollout.
So anyway, back to the data we're looking at. To me, it's antiquated already with this new thing that's going to change. We don't know how bad it's going to get, but I can tell you there's probably about 19 counties that are jobs poor, like Pasco County, again, trying to change it, that all this conversion of industrial and commercial space and mixed use is now going to hurt our graphics quite right here. So instead of having people work local, they're going to be driving further. That's going to affect the region more as well. So I would love it if you would just take another dive into this to figure out what's really going to be with industrial, commercial and service because of these changes that are coming up.
The
And if
potential,
that-
even the
and
potential.
if it
Yeah.
changed the numbers like 5%, 10%, whatever that number is, I think we should look at the real number. And then we can actually share that with our state legislators to say, look, this is what has happened. Here's a study we had done before, but now with this change, we're going to relook at this data and see what the actual effect is. I mean, just to have just this chart right now with what just happened, it's going to be even more devastating. So I think we should somehow, I don't know how to make the motion, what exactly to say, but I would like to get this data looked at again.
If I may make a recommendation, just given the time critical nature of this data, what might be reasonable is, for the purposes of the current snapshot in terms of doing the regional travel demand modeling for the long range plan, which in the case of your county has to be complete in June, and this is February, would be to either go with this current data and direct the staff to take another look at it, or to provide specific guidance. If you want us to go and reduce the industrial and service employment or all the employment across the board by 10%, then I can go do that this afternoon. But at this point, we need specific guidance in order for this to be able to move forward.
So I don't want to change the data. I don't want to slow the process down, but I do want to have this afterward looked at
I do
and
too.
restudied and come back with the numbers just for our own consideration, even if we don't act on it, but at least to show us what the difference would be.
Frankly, you should do that for all the counties that you're working in, because,
You really should.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see
Yeah,
how
I'll
many
say this,
apartments.
it's a mix. Many of the other counties, there are things they actually like about it. And obviously in other counties and communities, there's going to be things that you don't like. I mean, a lot of other counties that have a lot more of this older antiquated industrial that tends to be located proximate to the urban core. That land is much more valuable typically for other uses. And there's other areas that are better suited in their communities in terms of industrial and what the industrial product that folks are looking for. But if somebody came in to do a land use change and change it to residential, everybody would come out and be opposed to that particular development.
You say more valuable, but these apartment complexes are not going to be on the tax rolls. So
That, in the short term, you're right.
35 years, is that short term? I guess that's short term in someone like yours. In my ability to build roads and trails and fund the sheriff, that's very long term. I mean, very short term, very immediate when we start taking these hits. And you may not know what's going on here, but the apartments here are at 120 AMI, which is more than market.
Right.
So they can raise their rents and still come off our tax rolls. I would have thought Polk County was near in the same place as us, so that's interesting.
Can I continue with
Yeah.
the rest of the employment breakdown? So in terms of the growth, you'll see a bit more growth on the industrial side than you do on the commercial. That's following just a general trend. More of us are ordering stuff online as opposed to going to a brick and mortar store. You disproportionately are going to have more commercial employment than other counties, but just because you've been traditionally lacking those activities. So yes, you can buy an Aldi in Pasco County now and not have to travel to another county. So, but that industrial also includes the warehousing and distribution side of it. So those drivers fall underneath the industrial category. And then the most dramatic increase, and shouldn't be any surprise, would be in the area of service employment. Service employment includes the finance, insurance, real estate, professional services, education, and medical, all fall under, and government, all fall underneath that umbrella. And that's where the most dramatic increase, and again, more than doubling the amount of service employment within the county. So those are your current snapshot in terms of control totals. I will say in terms of some of the issues that you are bringing up, they're very legitimate issues. Concurrent to the development of this data here, it's been coordinated with your county staff who's working on the development of your comprehensive plan update. And obviously those types of land use changes are probably a great discussion to happen at that level as opposed to maybe the transportation side of it, because we're just largely dealing with the transportation influence of things, whereas all the other issues in terms of providing all the other public services, fall underneath the realm of the comp plan. Any additional questions or discussion relative to the population employment control totals? Okay. So the thing I'd like to just kind of focus on now is just the distribution of the dwelling unit. This is not a density map, okay? So if a very large zone has a goodly number of growth being added, it will make a very large area seem like it has a disproportionate amount of growth. So this is not a density map. The allocation of growth has been driven largely by the approved development information that's been provided by the county staff and the municipal staff. And so that is reflected here in terms of this distribution. And you can see probably no real surprise, a lot of the growth and development in the Bexley, the north of State Road 54 area, the whole area on the east part of the county east of 75, particularly north of State Road 54, and then also some growth along the 52 corridor. And again, this is largely driven by approved development. This is not something that a magic model is allocating. It is reflective of actual development. We are continuing to wrap up some adjustments in terms of the allocation of employment, and I anticipate actually meeting with your planning staff later today to make some adjustments, but it's been something that has been reviewed pretty intently, and they are continuing to guide us in terms of some adjustments that they'd like to see. In terms of the next step is ultimately just finalizing and kind of doing a little bit of balancing in terms of the forecast and wrapping up that review effort. We also are completing the allocation of hotel motel units and school enrollment. We're actually meeting with the school district this week to discuss the school enrollment side of things. And then we will finalize the report and transmit the final set of data to the Florida Department of Transportation and their consultant for their use in the travel demand forecasting model. And with that, I'm available for any additional questions you might have. This is an action item.
Nope, very interesting. Move to approve?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion
Thank you very
passes.
much. Y'all have a
Thank you.
pleasant day.
It's very interesting.
Thanks for the dialogue, appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have to leave in about 10 minutes. I don't, what's our number for a quorum? I'm going to that luncheon at the fairgrounds. So I got a long way
I
to
think
go.
5, so I think we got it, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, okay.
And I need to leave at 10:45, so I'll be here for 40.
A little bit longer, okay.
I hate to throw myself into this mix too, but I have a meeting with one of my insurance companies in Ocala at 12:30, so I'll be leaving about 10:30.
Is the commissioner coming
We're gonna
back?
have our,
Is Commissioner,
So we're gonna move quick.
so, what are the most important things on here that we need to vote on, just to be sure?
Safety performance measures.
Yes.
And
All
then
right.
two more.
Next up, 2024 System Performance Report.
Can I make a motion to approve number 6? Someone say second.
Or 6.
And we're appointing someone to the TAC.
Oh,
Second. Yeah.
all in favor?
Aye. Got that one done.
Carries, all right.
Good morning. This is usually one of the more important discussions that we have about safety, but just for time and for simplicity, today I have focused this presentation on the performance measures, on the targets. And then if the board has other questions, other general safety questions, I can certainly take notes and bring those back to you guys at a later, just general safety presentation. So I'll go ahead and get into the performance measures. So why do we report performance measures? Well, the federal government requires the state Department of Transportation and also MPOs to report safety measure targets annually. And it's just a way for us to track our progress or lack thereof on the quest of reducing fatalities and serious injuries. So the Florida Department of Transportation adopts this year, or in 2023, they adopted their targets on August 31st of 2023. So for us, that starts the 180-day clock for the MPO to adopt our safety targets, and those are required to be adopted by February 27th. So that's why typically February is our performance safety measures month. In 2024, and for the last several years, the MPO, the Florida Department of Transportation adopted their target of 0 for 2024. The Pasco MPO, along with Hillsborough and Pinellas, we're actually one of the few MPOs left that still adopt our own targets. So we support the statewide target of 0, but we also adopt our targets as a way of tracking our performance toward reducing fatalities and serious injuries. Also, safety performance measures are the only measures that apply to all public roads. You guys saw PM2 and PM3 measures last year for pavement and bridge and also for reliability. Those measures only look at the national highway system. So safety actually analyzes crashes, fatalities, and serious injuries on all public roads. So we make this caveat every year, and I'll make it again. The current 5-year average goes from 2018 to 2022. So any data from 2023 is not incorporated in our performance measures. So we're always basically looking, these are backward-looking measures. So we're really not taking into account investments that we've made in 2023 or any projects. So that's always a caveat. So we'll look at what the 5 performance measures are. There's number of fatalities and number of serious injuries. Those are just the raw numbers. Those are not affected by the rate. There's also non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, and those are lumped together. So you've got bicyclists, pedestrians, fatalities, and serious injuries all grouped into that performance measure. There's no rate for non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries just because there's not a good measure right now for person miles traveled. So that's just the raw number that you'll see for that performance measure. And there's also the rate of fatalities and the rate of serious injuries. And both of those are based on vehicle miles traveled. They're not based on population. So now we're going to actually look at the trends we're seeing for each one of the performance measures for the last few 5-year periods. Here's the average annual fatalities, and hopefully what you will see is that peak in that 2017 to 2021 period. We were down 1.3% between the current 5-year average and the previous 5-year average, and hopefully this is the top, and we're beginning to see the trend downward. That trend will be a little more obvious when we look at the serious injuries. So hopefully this is the beginning of a long trend down for annual fatalities. For the fatality rate, it's down a little bit more than just the average number of fatalities because our VMT is going up and just our raw fatality number is going down. So that percentage is actually down 3.4% from the previous 5-year average to the current. And again, that rate is based on 100 million vehicle miles traveled, not population. So this is just a general geographic distribution of the crashes. This generated a lot of discussion at the CAC. Of course, we've got 19, US 19 that's a problem, but I think from this graphic, you can tell that this is actually a countywide problem of fatal crashes. 19 represents about 15% of the crashes throughout the county. But again, this is a countywide problem. So for the average annual serious injuries, you can see it's a much more substantial trend downward, hopefully that we're going to begin to see with the fatalities also. So this year, for just the raw number of serious injuries, we're down almost 8%. And again, the trend is similar for the serious injury rate. And again, we're down more substantially with the rate because, again, our VMT is going up and our serious injuries are going down. So we're down almost 10% for the serious injury rate. And again, here's just a graphic representation of the serious injury crashes over the last 5 years. And again, this just reinforces the fact that this is a countywide issue. So we need to focus on all roads throughout the county. So this is that number that's kind of lumped together for the pedestrians, bicyclists, fatalities, and serious injuries. It's a little different shape of the trend. You can see we have two kind of peaks, and now we're on a downward trend again. So we're down 2.2% when comparing the last two 5-year rolling averages. I will say the bicyclists in this number represent about 40% of the number, pedestrians about 60%, and then serious injuries are 70% and fatalities are 30%. When we break it down, what we're seeing with the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries.
Chairman? Commissioner?
I've asked this for like this past several years about these pedestrians. Have we looked at how many of them are maybe on drugs or whatever, as far as walking out along, especially on the 19 corridor?
Well, we did do that as part of our 19 study, just internally in the staff, and we did present that. The problem that we have when we look at the crash reports is a lot of them are just not tested. So I believe we presented at least 50% of them. I'll have to go back and check. But again, so many of the crash reports, there's no test given. So any number that we do present is probably underestimated just because a lot of them, there is no test. So there's no data on that.
So does anybody check to see where they live, like what their address is? Is that ever reported?
Yes, that is on the crash report. For us, that would take going into every crash report, looking, seeing where they're from, which we can certainly do. But it's time intensive, but we can do that.
I mean, I think it's important to know. You can't do the drug test, okay, but if you have an
Wait, why
address.
can't we do the drug test? I'm
Well,
curious.
maybe you can, but I'm saying with the data we have right now, we can look at if there's an address listed. If there's no address listed, that may tell you that they were homeless. If it does have a regular address, that would tell you that maybe they're not homeless. And at least from there, you might be able to see something.
Well, we did look at it, and part of the problem too is that you may have an address for, say, next of kin, and that's not
Yeah.
that's
accurate.
not
That's why I
in the
said- that's why I said
report.
may,
So
If they have like no address, then you may have something else to go with.
Well, even our homeless sex offenders are given an address. I don't want to get into that publicly, but yeah, they may be homeless, but the state makes them give them an address. So
yeah, the one.
I'm not sure that would be accurate.
And we've actually only really dug deep into the crashes on 19, and just about all of them did have an address. So the issue is, then you got to parse out whose address is this, and that gets into.
I'd be more interested in the drug thing, I think.
It seems like I remember having this conversation, years ago about this, and I was surprised too that they didn't test them all, but it was, I don't know if there's a reason why they couldn't or what.
I believe it is well, I don't want to
Maybe HIPAA?
speak without
I don't know.
knowledge. Yes, that is part of it. I'll do a little deeper dive into that and see. I think it is a state statute, but I'll double check on that. So we have thought about those same questions. What is the percentage of intoxication or homelessness? And we found it difficult to get accurate information based on the crash reports.
The crash report's not going to get it. You got to do an autopsy to figure it out.
Well, even when an autopsy is done, it's not, because of HIPAA, I'm not sure if we could get that information. But we have investigated this and we'll continue to ask the same questions. Because
I mean, somehow the data's got to be got together. I mean, sometimes you come across these Hollywood stars, they get hooked on drugs, whatever, and they die for different reasons. And we've heard some recently that those studies come out to what they found. So if they can do it, I don't see what the problem is.
That's a good.
Yeah, well, we will continue to try to answer that question because we've posed it ourselves.
I mean, the definition of insanity is just like repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. If you get this data that you can't even use to really find out what the cause is, and if you find out the cause, it puts us in a much better position to do something about it.
Yeah.
It does, and just from looking at some of the details of the reports, you can read between the lines, I would say, to try to get an idea if there was some kind of intoxication. But for the majority of the reports, there just is there's no test given, and so that data is lost.
Okay, keep moving.
All right.
So
And
again,
there it
this is just a graphic representation of the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. Of course, you can see 19. And we can also see some in Zephyr Hills too, which is a little bit different travel patterns, a little bit different pattern than the motorized fatalities and serious injuries. So we've gotten this question the last few years, so we always include this.
I'm sorry, can you go back 1 second?
Sure.
I just want our staff to be looking at that orange dot. I'm thinking that's Duck Slough in 54. We seem to have a lot of fatalities right around in that area. And what are we doing to improve that? I just throwing that out there. I'd like to talk to staff about that. I think that's where that is.
So this is our vehicle miles traveled. This is just on the state highway system for 2022. Again, this is backward looking data 1 year, but we can see our VNT is increasing. You can see the COVID low there, and we're slowly probably starting to peak in our VNT also. And this is pretty comparable to what Hillsborough and Pinellas were seeing in their increase in VMT also. So there's a lot of data on this chart. This is a comparison of the Florida statewide performance versus the Pasco MPO's performance. A couple of things jump out. We are kind of diverging from the state in a good way in our amount and percentage of decrease. That's a good thing, but we're also, we're almost 2 times over the state number for the rates of especially serious injuries. So we've got some work to do in bringing the numbers down, but the staff is encouraged by the percentage decreases that we saw this year. And actually, the Pasco MPO was one of only 4 MPO planning areas that saw a decrease in all of the performance measures. So we feel like we're making progress. However, if your family member or you had a loved one or your friend is involved in one of these crashes, then we're not performing very well. We've always got to keep that in mind that, we talk about these as numbers, but these are lives, and every life on those maps and in these charts is affected by dozens of people. So we've got tens of thousands of people that are affected by these crashes every year. So we know we've got more work to do. And the targets don't mean anything if we can't talk about how we're addressing our goal of lowering the fatalities and serious injuries. I'm not going to talk about all these, but we're planning on multiple scales to try to reduce our fatalities and serious injuries. I will talk about the last one, the Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan. We're very excited about that grant. We're working to procure the grant funding right now. Hopefully that will be completed in the next couple months. And that's going to be a big deal for us. This is something that we need. We're expecting this to really identify projects that are going to really help us in this endeavor of lowering our fatalities and serious injuries. So this is an action item. These are the 2024 safety performance measures targets that we're requesting the board approve. Last year, we started a 10% reduction of the current 5-year rolling average, and we're going to ask for that again. We feel that 10% is achievable and also realistic. It's aggressive. I think the other MPOs in the area are probably about 5%. So we're aggressive, but we do feel like this is achievable.
In light of the time sequence we got, I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack and I are going to Washington I'm going Friday, you going Friday?
Right, yeah.
We plan to speak to, is it DOT up there? Whoever the road people are in Washington.
FHWA?
Yeah.
And do it.
So if this is something you'd like us to advance, then we're happy to take some stats with us, some handouts.
Certainly, I know we're a little crunched for time, but as part of the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan grant, there will be a, part of that is a good board message about reducing fatalities and serious injuries. And this 10% is a good.
Yeah, but
good
showing
step
how
toward
high we
that.
are, how more dangerous our county is compared to the state, I think is a telling story that we need some help with pedestrian overpasses and other things. Mid-block crossings and, the proof is in the numbers right there. By the way, we're also going to be talking about that bridge on Grand.
Oh.
Working to try and get some federal funding.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have fiscal year 2023-24 Unified Planning Work Program Amendment. Ms. Lori.
Yes, good morning, Lori Scheidegger with Pasco MPO. Tonight it was confirmed at the January 11th board meeting, which triggered an amendment that was needed for the UPWP. So that's what I'm asking for your approval, is to update the key person.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you.
Motion passes.
We already did 6.
All right, MPO Technical Advisory Committee.
We did that
Oh,
one.
we did that one.
Oh, I got you.
All right, go Pasco.
Good morning, Nina Elkin, Go Pasco Director. How are you all doing today? So I'm just here to show you, provide you a quick snapshot of our ridership over the years. Between 2022 and 2023, we had an increase of 13% of our ridership, and to 24, we are projecting so far 5%. This is a good sign for us because this means that we are on our way to meet those, to reach the pre-COVID level on our ridership. With that, I also wanted to share with you guys that last presentation that I did in August 2024, I mentioned that we were working to start several projects. So I just wanted to go over a couple of them because we initiated them and we're already on our way. Last Tuesday at the board meeting, it was approved the agreement with Kimley Horn to conduct our comprehensive route analysis. So we're going to start working with them. We have a 9-month turnaround for this project. So we will be back and provide you with information and recommendations for that, for our system. Also, we initiate our bus stop ADA improvements along US 19, 301, and we'll be upgrading some bus stops in Chilby-Lacucci area. We also began our conversation with a vendor for ITS system, which is the onboard technology. We will be purchasing passenger counters, automatic passenger counters on our whole fleet of 35 vehicles. We also will be doing the AVL, automatic vehicles locators. And the most important will be the real-time information app for our riders, which will let them know where the bus is at a specific time. And due to the recent bus operators assaults that are happening in the nation, we decided to go with a camera system that will be live look. So we will be able to look at what's going on the buses on real time from back in our offices. This will help our supervisors to immediately go and assist our bus operators. And with that also, collection of data that currently is collected manually, but we'll look forward to this new system. Lastly, there are two more. We will be moving forward with a mobile ticketing, which will be a virtual pass for our riders to be able to not only use their paper pass and money, but also an app that they can, show that they purchased their pass. And like I said, lastly, will be our multimodal transfer stations. We're looking at two locations, one in Port Richey and the other one in Zephyr Hills. We will be currently, we identified two locations. We're going through the agreements to acquire those two sites and hopefully start design soon and construction. At this time, we do not have a transfer station. The only one that we have is in Zephyr Hills, is in front of the City Hall. But unfortunately, that's just a pull-out. It's not a location where a driver can use a restroom and riders can actually wait for the bus and safely transfer from bus to bus. And the other issue that we have is the Golfie Mall, as you may know, it's being redeveloped. Right now, 5 routes are meeting at that location, so we need to find another location to have this transfer of people, in a safe environment. And that's it for me. I don't know if you have any questions.
Any questions? We're good. All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. All right, we don't have any presentations, so on to other business. MPO Advisory Council. Tina Gorman.
Yes, can you put the flyer up? Oh, I can do that. There we go. So it's here once again, the MPO AC Weekend Institute for our elected officials. It's a great way, if you're new on the MPO board, to attend and learn about the MPO and its functions and how we do processes. And it really is a great weekend to go out and really learn and also interact and engage with other MPO board members. You have 2 dates up there, the Florida Hotel Conference in Orlando, and then the Renaissance Tampa International in Tampa, March or May. I highly recommend to go. If you're interested, please send me an email, and the MPO will go ahead and take care of your accommodations for the trip. But it is really a good weekend of learning for those who are new to the MPO board.
Thank you.
Oh, Brian's update on that mid-bar crossing you're talking about.
Okay.
Brian Hunter with FDOT. I will send Commissioner Starkey an email since she was the originator of the request. But that construction project, the resurfacing that'll include the pedestrian crossing, is going to kick off sometime in spring of 2025. So, the March, April timeframe. So, and then it's probably got a year of construction time frame. So we'll be opening it in about 1.5 years, 2 years.
All right. Any questions?
Well,
All right, thank you. All right, looks like that's it. Does anybody have anything else?
Just bring one thing up. At the board meeting yesterday, we actually did an approval of a project up at Sunwest Park. And we've also got progress on fixing a lot of stormwater issues up there. One of them being an apartment complex that's going to be coming in. And I know on the west side of the road with Swift Mud Properties, et cetera, we're going to put a trail up there eventually. But I would think that MPO should probably look and talk with the developer that's here, that's coming in, and try to make sure we get a nice wide trail on the other side as well.
Where is this again?
It's Sunwest Park. So I would say from, let's say, Gulf Drive, from Gulf Drive all the way up to on Old Dixie Highway, all the way up to the park. You should get with the developer that's coming in, because once those apartment opens up and there's even more traffic going up there, we do plan on like I said, on the west side, but if that developer is coming in, the commission's pushing to get all the developers to come in and put trails in front of their property. And I would say we should look at that, but even taking it all the way up. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? That's good, all right. Motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.